Vroom, vroom, vroom. Have you ever thought how cool it would be if you could fly? Have you ever wondered what it takes exactly for birds and planes and bumblebees to stay up in the sky? What it would be like to fly a plane like this or a supersonic Blue Angel's jet? Want to find out? Let's explore! Let's meet our guest, Jeffrey Meshach, who's going to talk about things that actually do fly quite successfully, birds. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So you are the executive director of the World Bird Sanctuary.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about what it is the World Bird Sanctuary does.
We work completely with birds, and we rehabilitate injured ones. We propagate endangered species to release back to the wild to help build up their numbers. We do plenty of education programs to teach children why birds are important to our world. It's so important that we conserve their habitat and the birds themselves. If we're going to conserve the birds themselves, we have to conserve the places that they live. And we teach children how to very simply take care of conserving habitat.
Very cool. So that barn owl was beautiful. I had the pleasure of being there that day, and just to see him or her, I'm not sure which it was, soaring in the air was extremely impressive. Are they a fairly common bird in the Midwest?
Unfortunately, they're not. They're an endangered species, mostly because of habitat loss.
Okay, so that's something that kids need to think about, obviously.
That is
habitat
correct.
loss and the way it affects birds. That's a good thing to know. Well, let's start talking about bird anatomy and what it's able to do because of how it's made. We're going to start by looking at a couple of factoid pieces of information that some students right here at Ladue have put together with us about the nature of a bird's anatomy. Idon, let's go to yours first.
Did you know a bird's heart beats up to 400 times per minute while resting and almost 1,000 beats per minute while flying?
Warning, do not try this at home or anywhere else. When flying, a sparrow's heart pumps more than 450 times each minute. But I'm sorry to say, even if you strapped on giant wings, you can never fly because the human heart can't pump blood quick enough to satisfy the enormous strain of flapping.
Thank you, Rain, and thank you, Idon. That leads us into talking about bird anatomy. We've got a still image we can bring up as we do it. Talk about the heart, the lung, the anatomy of a bird, the respiratory system, all parts of it that make it possible for a bird to do what it's going to do.
Sure. First of all, the heart of a bird is 1.5 to 2 times larger than a mammal. So our hearts are about the size of our fist. If we were a bird, it would be about twice as big as your fist. So they can pump an amazing amount of blood, very, very strong, much stronger than the human heart. The respiratory system is very special. It takes 2 breaths for a bird to before it can finally exhale the first breath that it took. So the first breath that it takes goes into what's called anterior air sacs towards the bottom of the body. First breath, and then the first exhalation, that air passes across the lungs. It passes across the lungs in a one-way direction. And so the next exhale forces that first one into the anterior air sacs, and then the final exhalation, number 2, is when it finally comes back out of the mouth.
Wow.
So it's a one-way trip for that air. Rather, comparing it to mammals, when we suck in and suck back out, we're mixing the carbon dioxide that's coming out of our body with the oxygen that's trying to go in. With birds, it's oxygen completely across the lungs all the time.
And so because they get more oxygen, that just feeds more power for themselves?
That's exactly right. It feeds more power to themselves. It allows them to more efficiently get rid of the carbon dioxide from the blood and transfer the oxygen to the blood.
So like when we look at a bald eagle in flight, the oxygen that they've got is just making them so much more efficient than we would ever be able to be.
That is correct. Again, it's just that one-way system that the air comes into the body and goes out in one-way system rather than two-way with mammals.
Wow. Does it vary from bird to bird, or is every bird's basic respiratory system the same?
Every bird's basic respiratory system is the same.
So we got a little bit of understanding about hearts and lungs. Let's talk a little bit about skeleton. Caitlin's going to share some information with us. So let's go to Caitlin's video.
How do birds fly?
Well, their wings have this protein called keratin. It is found in humans' hair, teeth, and nails as well. This lightweight substance allows a bird to fly. It also is strong and waterproof to protect the bird from wind and weather.
So keratin.
The keratin is what makes up the feather.
Okay, so
Yeah,
the keratin is what's
right.
this right here?
That is correct.
Okay.
Keratin makes up the feather, and it also makes up the or the claws of a bird,
Oh,
and
right.
also the beak. Keratin is a lightweight substance as compared to bone. One of the things that weighs birds down is the weight. You know, they have to deal with weight, so they want to be as light as possible. So they have hollow bones, as she had mentioned. They have hollow bones, but they also have keratin in places where we have bone. In particular, the teeth. We have this heavy jaw bone that grows heavy teeth, where birds have a lightweight beak. Again, helping to make them lighter so they can deal with everything else that they need to deal with. Flying is a very, very strenuous exercise. Probably one of the most strenuous exercises in nature, so they want to be as light as possible.
Well, just a specific idea that you mentioned about the jaw matters because obviously their head is going into the wind, so to speak, or always dealing with the dragging force that's coming at them. So the idea that my head is lighter because I'm using keratin and I don't have a heavy jaw and teeth would obviously make a big difference for my aerodynamic stream as it goes over me successfully, right?
Yep, and then there are some internal organs that are smaller as compared to mammal organs. They have a very quick and efficient digestive system, so the food doesn't stay in very long.
So this, I believe, if I remember right, there is a peregrine falcon.
This is a juvenile peregrine falcon.
Who's a very fast flyer, right? He can actually shoot down pretty fast.
The fastest creature in the world you're looking at right there, the peregrine falcon. They've been clocked at a speed of 261 miles per hour in the dive when they're after their prey. 261 miles per hour, by far the fastest animal in the world.
Wow. So you see the feathers, and we're going to have a chance to look at wings here in a minute. You see how the feathers are laid on top of each other, and that makes a difference, the way they lay on top of each other. I see some of them are longer, some of them are shorter.
That is correct. So we've got these primary feathers. The feathers furthest out on the wing are called the primary feathers, and they are the propulsion for the bird.
Okay.
When a bird flaps its wing, it is actually, of course, in slow motion you could see this, it actually is flapping out and pulling itself with its wing.
Okay.
And then when the wing comes back up, these primaries act like a Venetian blind, where they actually open up so that the wing can come up into the position where it's going to flap again more easily.
Wow.
Comes up more easily, and then when it goes to push back down to pull the bird through the air, these primaries snap back together, again, Venetian blind closing, so that very little air comes through the wing as they're pulling themselves through the air.
Wow. So they're made very efficiently to be able to do what they need to do.
That is correct. And so that's the propulsion as far as the wing is concerned. The secondaries are the lift. The wind passes underneath, a high pressure passes underneath the wing, low pressure above. The Bernoulli's principle allows the bird to lift. When they spread out their wings, they almost automatically are lifted into the air.
Wow. Yeah. So, because the taking off moment, they're pushing down with their wings as they take off and then going up?
Actually pulling themselves.
Pulling them back.
Yep, so it looks like it's a downward motion, but the wings come out just a little bit further in front of the plane of their body, and then they pull themselves through the air. Those primaries pull the birds through the air.
Okay, so it's almost like they're sticking their neck out?
Yeah, sort of, but it's the wings actually doing the motion. But it gives you the impression that, yes, that their heads are moving out as their wings, but it's actually the wings that are doing all the work.
Oh, how very cool. Now, you've got some very specific feathers here that we want to take a moment to look at. Okay. So where would you like to start,
I'd like
Jeff?
to start with the primaries. Again, those outermost wing feathers, and this is an Andean condor primary.
Okay.
And you can see that it is curved, and that's to help support the bird's weight. I'm sure many people have seen the.
I'll point it
this way. Okay.
Yeah, so we can see the contour nicely.
Yeah, many people have seen those tractor trailers, those flatbed trucks that don't have anything on them, how they curve up.
Oh,
and
yes.
that's to help support all of the weight that they're going to have to carry when they are carrying goods across the country. Birds' feathers are the exact same way, and each feather, as I explained with the wing, helps give the bird lift. It's not just the wing itself, it's each feather. And you can test that by doing this with the feather. And you can go ahead and try that. You can feel that your arm will lift up. Take it like this into the wind.
Okay, so if I'm doing this?
Yep.
Oh, yes, it does.
Can you felt your arm lift. And
yes.
Every feather is built to give the bird lift.
Oh, how very cool. Plus, I like the sound it makes. How very cool that is. Now, you've got other feathers besides this kind.
Yeah, that's the primary feather.
Primary feather, okay.
One of the primary feathers.
Okay.
And then we also have secondary feathers. Where's the secondary feather?
Right over here.
Right
I've hidden it from you.
Secondary feathers, again, that was this part of the wing here. The innermost wing feathers are the secondaries. And they, again, propulsion out here. And when the wing is set, when it is extended totally, the primaries help with lift too. But when the primaries are pulling the bird through the air, doing the propulsion, then the secondaries continue to provide lift. They want very little of any air to slip through the wing as they're trying to propel themselves through the air.
Neat. Now they've also got a tail, obviously, that's going to help them.
They have a tail
because they've got to, in essence, have a rudder that helps them move, and that's what you've got right here is the tail feather.
That is correct, and the tail is the same way. So we've got two center tail feathers. They're called the deck feathers, and they are on top of the tail, and then every other feather is underneath the next one, and so on all the way out. And with birds of prey, they've got 12 tail feathers, 2 center ones, and then 5 out each side. And tails help with maneuverability, of course. They also help the bird soar. They spread that tail out as this tail is spread out right now and help catch the air, different air currents that come up off the ground to help the bird soar. Soaring is a very efficient type of flight.
Very, very cool. I want you to see up close how a hummingbird flies specifically, something that Marissa put together for us.
The hummingbird is the only bird that can fly backwards. Hummingbirds beat their wings as fast as 50 times per second, the fastest of any bird on the planet. This speedy wing beat, plus a rotating wrist joint, allows a hummingbird to hover in place, to fly backwards and upside down, and to catch tiny flying insects.
So thank you, Marissa, for that information about hummingbirds, the smallest bird, but also an exceptionally efficient flyer.
So that's for sure. As she said, their wings flap in a figure eight motion, like that, and that's when they're hovering is when they're doing that figure eight.
Jeff, thank you so very much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Fast and furious and on flying, but it's great to be able to have this information about birds. We really appreciate it.